I take everything like that with a pinch of salt, really, because you can't say who's best. The world is all about money, which to me is all wrong.
Brian May appeared to be the perfect gentleman of rock. A soft-spoken astrophysicist who built his own guitar and crafted some of music's most sophisticated compositions.
Me and my dad said about making the guitar. Really, it happened because we couldn't afford a guitar. I couldn't afford a Stratocaster.
But behind his scholarly demeanor and thoughtful interviews lurked a calculating mind that kept detailed mental records of every guitarist he considered intellectually inferior or undeservingly successful. Welcome to another episode of Offstage Tales, where today we're examining the methodical resentments of Brian May and the 6 musicians who triggered his academic wrath. The Queen guitarist who created orchestral masterpieces like Bohemian Rhapsody and We Will Rock You was notorious among industry insiders for his quiet but devastating assessments of fellow players. There's a difference between playing guitar and understanding guitar, May once observed to a music journalist in 1982. Some people hit notes, others create architecture. That clinical precision became his weapon for dissecting every guitarist who crossed his radar. From technical show-offs to manufactured personas, May's contempt for these musicians wasn't just about different playing styles. It was about fundamental disagreements over what guitar music should accomplish intellectually and emotionally. These conflicts revealed a man who viewed music as science and had zero patience for those who treated it as mere entertainment. So adjust your thinking caps and prepare for some surprisingly analytical takedowns from rock's most cerebral guitar mind. 6. Yngwie Malmsteen. Opening our countdown at number 6 is May's clash with neoclassical speed demon Yngwie Malmsteen. May's irritation with the Swedish virtuoso wasn't about his classical influences. It was about watching Malmsteen prioritize finger gymnastics over the melodic storytelling that May considered guitar's highest calling. The annoyance reportedly began in the mid-1980s, when Malmsteen's lightning-fast arpeggios were being hailed as guitar's new frontier.
I think that the way the guy played and the person he was and the way he interacted with his...
According to former Polydor Records executive Chris Wright, May analyzed Malmsteen's albums meticulously, telling him, "Yngwie can play 1,000 notes per minute, but he's saying absolutely nothing with any of them. It's like watching someone recite the phone book at superhuman speed." What frustrated May wasn't Malmsteen's technical ability but his musical priorities. While May was constructing elaborate guitar orchestrations that supported Queen's theatrical compositions, Malmsteen was achieving recognition through what May reportedly called athletic guitar playing and classical music butchered by someone who thinks faster automatically means better. "Speed without purpose is just musical masturbation," May told Guitar Player magazine in 1987, defending his belief that technical ability should serve compositional goals rather than dominate them. The philosophical divide widened when guitar magazines began ranking players based purely on technical speed. At a 1988 music industry convention, witnesses claim May declined to participate in a fastest guitarist discussion, later telling organizers, "I'd rather be remembered for one meaningful melody than a million meaningless scales." 5. Slash. At number 5, we uncover May's battle against manufactured authenticity, Slash from Guns N' Roses. May's disdain for the top-hatted guitarist wasn't about his blues rock style. It was about watching Slash construct a carefully calculated, rebellious guitar hero image that May believed was completely artificial and designed purely for commercial appeal.
It's quite feisty when I was
It wasn't a
young
linear
girl.
process, was it? It was
No,
bits and
it was,
pieces,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you get in this world of sort of...
The skepticism reportedly emerged in the late 1980s when Slash was being promoted as rock's new bad boy guitarist. According to former Geffen Records marketing director Al Corey, May studied Slash's media appearances with growing cynicism, telling him, "Saul's playing a character he invented for the cameras. The hat, the hair, the cigarettes. It's all costume drama designed to sell records to people who want to buy rebellion instead of earn it. What bothered May wasn't Slash's playing ability, but his personal development. While May had evolved naturally from shy student to confident performer through decades of musical growth, Slash was achieving stardom through what May reportedly called designer danger and carefully packaged wildness that's about as authentic as a Hollywood movie set. The authenticity debate intensified when Slash's image began influencing young guitarists to adopt similar poses and attitudes. At a 1990 guitar exhibition, witnesses claim May refused to pose for photos with Slash, later explaining to his publicist, "I won't validate someone who's turned guitar playing into method acting." Slash seemed committed to his rock persona rather than concerned with May's academic perspective. But for May, Slash represented the commercialization of guitar authenticity. 4. Steve Vai number 4 brings us to May's educational philosophy war. Steve Vai. May's dismissal of the Berkeley-trained virtuoso wasn't about his innovative techniques. It was about watching Vai's formal musical education produce what May considered technically perfect but emotionally sterile guitar work that lacked the intuitive discovery process May valued above all else. The intellectual conflict reportedly developed throughout the 1980s when Vai's academic precision was being celebrated as guitar's future. According to former Relativity Records producer Mike Varney, May listened to Vai's solo albums with clinical detachment, telling him, "Steve plays every note exactly as his professors taught him, but there's no personal journey in any of it. He's executing exercises instead of expressing experiences." What troubled May wasn't Vai's competence, but his methodology. While May had discovered his unique sound through years of experimental trial and error with homemade equipment, Vai was achieving acclaim through what May reportedly called conservatory correctness and guitar playing that sounds like it was graded by music theory instructors instead of felt by human emotion. The philosophical gap became clear when music schools began teaching Vai's systematic approach to guitar development. At a 1989 educational seminar, witnesses claim May questioned whether formal instruction was killing musical instinct, telling attendees, "Learning rules before learning feelings produces musicians who sound like textbooks instead of human beings." Vai seemed proud of his educational background, rather than questioning its limitations. But for May, Vai represented creativity's institutionalization. 3. Joe Satriani. At number 3, we discover May's most philosophical guitar disagreement, Joe Satriani. May's frustration with the instrumental guitar master wasn't about his melodic sensibilities. It was about watching Satriani abandon vocals and lyrics entirely, which May believed stripped guitar music of its essential communicative purpose and turned it into purely academic exercise.
There's something called there's a track called "Was It All Worth It," which sums up our whole career in a way. That's very interesting.
The conceptual clash reportedly intensified during the late 1980s when Satriani's instrumental albums were achieving unprecedented commercial success. According to former Relativity Records executive Cliff Coltrari, May examined Satriani's approach with growing bewilderment, telling him, "Joe's created beautiful guitar landscapes, but he's removed the human voice that gives music its emotional anchor. It's like building a house without installing any doors." What perplexed May wasn't Satriani's compositional skill, but his artistic limitations. While May had spent his career using guitar to support and enhance vocal storytelling within Queen's dramatic frameworks, Satriani was achieving recognition through what May reportedly called instrumental isolation and guitar music that talks only to other guitarists instead of communicating with regular human beings. Guitar should serve the song's emotional message, not become the entire conversation, May told Guitar World in 1990, defending his belief that instrumental prowess meant nothing without lyrical context. The artistic divide became apparent when instrumental guitar albums began dominating specialist music charts. At a 1991 music conference, Witnesses claim May questioned the trend toward purely instrumental rock, telling panelists, "We're creating music for musicians instead of music for people, which defeats the entire purpose of popular music." Satriani seemed satisfied with his instrumental focus rather than considering vocal collaboration. But for May, Satriani represented guitar's communicative failure. 2. Eddie Van Halen. At number 2, we encounter May's most personal innovation grudge, Eddie Van Halen. May's jealousy toward the Dutch-American guitar revolutionary wasn't about his songwriting. It was about watching Van Halen receive massive credit for finger-tapping techniques, while May's own pioneering multi-tracking and orchestral arrangements were consistently overlooked by guitar publications and critics. The resentment reportedly festered throughout the late 1970s when Van Halen's Eruption was being hailed as guitar's quantum leap forward. According to former Warner Brothers executive Ted Templeman, May studied Van Halen's recognition obsessively, telling him, "Eddie gets praised for one flashy technique while I've been revolutionizing guitar orchestration for years without anyone noticing. The media loves simple tricks more than complex innovations." What ate at May wasn't Van Halen's ability, but the attention disparity. While May had been quietly developing sophisticated, multi-layered guitar compositions that created entire orchestras from a single instrument, Van Halen was achieving legendary status through what May reportedly called one-trick wizardry and flashy fingerwork that impresses people but doesn't advance guitar's compositional possibilities.
And just to be with Mr. Van Halen, gotta tell you, there's a moment when you think,
Real innovation should expand what guitar can accomplish musically, not just what it can do physically, May told Guitar Player in 1981, expressing his frustration with technique-focused recognition over compositional advancement. The competitive tension became obvious when both guitarists were being ranked in innovation polls. At a 1982 industry awards ceremony, witnesses claim May avoided Van Halen's celebration table, later confiding to his manager, "He gets credit for being revolutionary, while I get called competent." History remembers the showmen, not the architects. Van Halen seemed unaware of May's competitive feelings, later praising Queen's guitar arrangements. But for May, Van Halen represented recognition inequality. 1. Jimmy Page. And finally, at number 1, we reach the most devastating revelation of all, Jimmy Page. Yes, Led Zeppelin's legendary architect reportedly earned Brian May's ultimate fury in what became the most intellectually brutal rivalry in guitar composition history. The devastation reportedly began in the early 1970s when Page was receiving universal acclaim as rock's premier guitar composer, while May's equally sophisticated arrangements were being dismissed as pop music. According to former EMI executive Ken Townsend, May would analyze Led Zeppelin's compositions with scientific precision, telling him, "Jimmy gets called a genius for blues-based arrangements, while my symphonic guitar orchestrations get ignored because they're attached to sing-along choruses. Academic snobbery is destroying objective musical assessment." What destroyed May wasn't Page's talent, but the critical double standard. While May was creating multi-layered guitar symphonies that required advanced harmonic knowledge and orchestral thinking, Page was achieving historical reverence through what May reportedly called primitive blues extensions and arrangements that sound complex but follow basic pentatonic patterns any intermediate player could master. Music critic Charles Shaar Murray reported that May later told him, "Jimmy Page represents everything wrong with musical criticism. Blues gets called art, while pop gets called craft, regardless of actual compositional complexity." Page remained diplomatically silent about such comparisons throughout his career. But for May, Page represented the ultimate academic injustice, receiving scholarly recognition for simpler work while complex innovations were dismissed due to genre prejudice. So there you have it. Even gentle guitar geniuses nurse intellectual wounds. Was Brian May defending compositional sophistication or just craving academic recognition? Which guitar philosophy makes more sense? Subscribe and share your analytical thoughts below.